Silence. A thick, suffocating blanket woven from silk and fear. Can you feel it? It settles over these halls, heavier than any crown, smelling of jasmine and the faint, metallic tang of things best left unsaid. Here, in the heart of the Sultan's domain, where every shadow might conceal an assassin's blade or a lover's desperate plea, there are whispers. Low, furtive whispers, carried on currents of air that no one was ever meant to breathe. They speak of a woman, a ghost almost, a slave, they say, whose very name was erased from the scrolls, deemed too dangerous even for memory. Yet, her gaze was a beacon, a burning ember in a world of muted colors, destined to incinerate the old order. Do you understand the weight of such a story? It is the secret history of this very dynasty, a tale meticulously buried beneath layers of political intrigue and convenient myth. They would have you believe in destiny, in the divine right of men. But what if the first tremor, the foundational crack in this edifice of power, was something far more fragile? Picture it now, a corridor, bathed in the soft, fading light of a late afternoon. The air, heavy with unspoken tension. She moves, a mere shadow among many, her movements as quiet as the fall of night. A servant, nameless, invisible. Yet, as she passes the Sultan's favored concubine, a breath-held moment. A simple object slips from her grasp. A slip of silk, nothing more. A scarf, embroidered with threads of gold, a trinket perhaps. Carelessly dropped, it seemed, an accident. But was it? That single, shimmering piece of silk, fallen to the polished marble, was not merely a garment. It was a thread unraveling the tapestry of power, the first delicate step on a ladder that led not to heaven, but to a throne drenched in ambition and blood. It was a silent challenge, a visible disruption in the perfectly ordered theater of the harem. The price of every breath in this palace is power. The price of power, my dear, is always blood. And this small, forgotten incident, this whisper of silk against stone, marked the true beginning of a reign that would redefine the very meaning of dominion. It was the first ripple in a pond of poison, promising a tempest. The air here, behind these gilded screens, hangs heavy with the scent of jasmine and unspoken desires. A perfumed cage, one might say. But for some, it is not a cage at all. It is merely a threshold. She stepped across it, a wisp of a girl from nowhere, her past a forgotten whisper, her future an unwritten prophecy. She had nothing, you understand, no name that mattered, no family to offer protection, no bloodline to grant her passage. Only the fierce, untamed fire that burned within her, a spark against the encroaching darkness, and a mind honed to a dangerous edge like a hidden dagger beneath the softest silk. These marble floors, polished by centuries of bare feet and silent ambition, were her first arena. Each step an uncertain ballet on the very edge of an abyss. The harem, a labyrinth of beauty and brutal hierarchy, swallowed her whole, yet could not extinguish that inner flame. Here, laughter was a shield, silence a weapon. A glance could convey a threat, a gesture, a promise. And trust? Trust was a concept for fools, a luxury few could afford, and fewer still would survive. Watch her closely, see how she moves. Not yet with the confidence of a queen, but with the instinct of a creature cornered, yet refusing to break. She observes. Every whisper from the veiled women, every fleeting expression on the face of an aga, every flicker in the Sultan's distant eye was data. A map being drawn in her mind, charting the currents of power and the treacherous shoals of betrayal. She learned the language of this silent war, where beauty was merely the first line of offense and defenselessness the swiftest of sentences. Her smile, when it came, was never spontaneous. It was a finely calculated instrument designed to disarm, to invite, to probe. Her eyes, deep pools reflecting the flickering oil lamps, held no innocence, only a nascent cunning. She saw the other women, their rivalries, their petty cruelties, their desperate grasp for favor. They were pieces on a board, and she, new to the game, studied their moves, memorizing their weaknesses and, crucially, their strengths. For to survive, she knew, one must understand the hunter as intimately as the prey. The cup of sherbet. Ah, the sherbet. Sweetened fruit, chilled by snow from distant mountains, served in delicate porcelain. It was offered with a smile, a gesture of hospitality, a promise of comfort. But how often, my dear audience, has that sweet nectar been merely a veil for something far more sinister? A drop of poison, tasteless, odorless, slipped in during a moment of distraction, ending a nascent threat or silencing a dangerous secret. It became a symbol of this court, this palace, beautiful, tempting, and utterly lethal. She would learn to hold that cup, to sip from it, to offer it, with an unwavering hand. Her face, a mask of serene composure, even as her mind raced, dissecting every possibility, every hidden agenda. It was not about good or evil, not in these halls. Such concepts were luxuries of a world she had left behind. Here, there was only the raw, visceral will to survive. A primal drive that, with each passing day, each subtle victory, each averted disaster, began to transform. It coalesced into something far grander, far more dangerous, an unrestrained ambition. A hunger not just for safety, but for power. A desire to not merely exist within the shadows, but to cast them herself. She was a predator, yes, but one refined by the brutal elegance of her surroundings. Encased in fine silks, adorned with the jewels of the empire, she moved with a grace that belied the steel within. The quiet girl, the slave, was slowly, meticulously, becoming the architect of her own dynasty. Her journey had just begun, and the path ahead was paved with danger, yet illuminated by a terrifying, magnificent resolve. The silence she commanded was not an absence of sound, but the heavy hush before a storm. And we, here, behind these ancient stones, are but witnesses to its brewing. The air in these imperial chambers, once thick with jasmine and the Sultan's fleeting favor, now hummed with a metallic tang, the chilling whisper of what must be done. Her ascent from step dust to this gilded pinnacle had secured a place. But true power, the kind that reshaped a dynasty for generations, demanded more than whim. It demanded blood. Her blood, fiercely guarded and ruthlessly asserted. She bore sons, each birth a seismic declaration, each infant cry a drumbeat against the old order. With every child clutched to her breast, her own precarious existence strengthened, binding her irrevocably to this empire's future. Yet heirs, precious and vital, were also targets. The bloodline she now forged was an existential threat to every other prince, every other woman clinging to a tenuous claim, a faded prestige. The palace, a labyrinth of secrets, transformed under her gaze into a sprawling, deadly chessboard. Each courtier, vizier, concubine became a living piece in her relentless game. Alliances, forged over spiced wine, shattered with a poisoned chalice or a devastating whispered lie. Betrayal was not sin, but strategy, a necessary turn of the screw in power's intricate machinery. Her rivals, women clinging to fading influence, those who resented her rise, learned this lesson swiftly and brutally. Serene faces veiled by silk in the upper galleries often concealed daggers, the most potent poison slipped into morning coffee or a midnight draft. They spoke of «Они шептали, что само небо отвергнет такое», что сам камень закричит, прежде чем рабыня осмелится прикоснуться к тому, что принадлежит лишь избранным по крови. Но вот мы стоим, наблюдая за этим из тени, и мир замер. Взгляните на нее. Та, что пришла никем, из праха и покорности, теперь возвышается над всеми. Ее рука, что когда-то знала лишь плеть и унижение, теперь держит не просто корону. Она держит саму судьбу династии, тонкой, как шелковая нить, и такой же легко рвущейся. Это не просто восхождение. Это землетрясение, что сотрясло вековые устои. Каждый, кто когда-либо смеялся над ее именем, кто пытался сломать ее дух, теперь вынужден смотреть, как невозможное свершилось. Почувствуйте эту тишину, что опустилась на дворец. Она тяжелее любого крика, гуще любого яда, которым травили ее предвестниц. Это не просто отсутствие звука, это абсолютное безмолвие мира, пораженного дерзостью и силой одной женщины. Мир замер, сжался, прежде чем склониться перед властью, ранее недоступной. Корона. Она не блестит так, как кажется. Под ее золотом скрывается безмерный вес. Это не украшение, дитя мое, это бремя. Каждый драгоценный камень в ней — это цена. Обещания, забытые имена, предательство, что дало ей силы, и кровь, что смыла ее прошлое. Ее триумф — это не личное достижение. Это переломный момент для целой империи, который изменит ее навсегда. Отныне ничто не будет прежним. Отныне тень этой короны будет простираться над всеми нами. И в этой тишине, где каждый вздох кажется преступлением, слышно лишь биение сердца новой королевы, что отвоевала свой трон у самой судьбы. Her name, you see, became legend. A tapestry woven not merely with silk and golden thread, but with the crimson dye of sacrifice, the stark white of bone, and the impenetrable black of an unyielding will. It was carved, deep and indelible, into the annals of this very empire, echoing through these silent stones even now. But tell me, was it glory she truly found in that dizzying ascent, or a curse passed down through the bloodline she so fiercely fought to establish? Was her triumph a personal vindication, or a tragedy born of 1,000 souls offered upon the altar of her ambition? In the ruthless game of queens, played out behind tapestried walls and whispered secrets, there are no clear lines between good and evil. There are only survivors. Men, they say, built empires with their swords and their sweat, charting their conquests on maps of parchment and blood. But I have seen, from my vantage in the shadow, that it is women who truly govern these vast domains. They rule from the deepest recesses of the dynasty, their strategies woven into the very fabric of the court. Their battles fought with poison, with alliances, with the subtle art of betrayal. Their game is far more unforgiving, more psychologically devastating than any clash of armies on an open field. And the cost? It is measured in heartbreak, in shattered loyalties, in the chilling silence that follows a sudden, unexplained death. And so, as centuries bleed into one another within these hallowed, haunted chambers, her legacy remains. A woman who rose from dust to destiny, leaving behind a trail of both adoration and infamy. And sometimes, when the moon casts long, skeletal shadows across these very floors, I swear you can hear it. Her ghost of a whisper, a stark, cold reminder. Even from the deepest ash, even from the most abject despair, a throne can be built. If only the will is strong enough to pay the ultimate price.